I mean, we lay out the fourfold interconnected threat that white rural voters pose to the country. First of all, and we show 30 polls and national studies to demonstrate this, so we provide the receipts in Chapter 6. They're the most racist, xenophobic, anti-immigrant, anti-gay geodemographic group in the country. Second, they're the most conspiracist group. QAnon support and subscribers, election denialism, COVID denialism and scientific skepticism, Obama birtherism. Third, anti-democratic sentiments. They don't believe in an independent press, free speech. They're most likely to say the president should be able to act unilaterally without any checks from Congress or the courts or the bureaucracy. They're also the most strongly white nationalists and white Christian nationalists. And fourth, they are most likely to excuse or justify violence as an acceptable alternative to peaceful public discourse.
My heavens, Paul Harvey sure left some details out about these people in his So God Made a Farmer commentary, didn't he? I guess those heady days after the 2016 election when professional Beltway bloviators embarked upon anthropological pilgrimages to rural America to study the strange life forms that subsist there and behave in the most curious ways, doing things like voting for Trump. I guess those days have now concluded. The committed anti-othering set has replaced their introspective, how thick is my bubble, with the rhetorical and more convenient, how racist, xenophobic, anti-gay, and authoritarian is my food provider. The sneering ad hominem certainly saves a trip and at least 3 stops at a charging station. If you're worried itinerant identitarians will struggle to address the moral quandary of patronizing their fave farm-to-table eateries, knowing doing so would be underwriting the Fourth Reich, fret not. Some non-binary philosophy major from Mount Holyoke will offer that, as La Rochefoucauld observed, hypocrisy is a tribute that vice pays to virtue, don't you see? Everyone in the pronoun posse will harumph agreement, share the talking point at the next Students for Justice in Palestine riot, and the cover story will be codified. Speaking of patronizing, these revelations about hillbilly honkies are unfortunate slights to the love is love left, who inclusively turned a blind eye to the farmers-only dating site, which, it's safe to assume, is a front for inbreeding and bestiality. Even Vice President Kamala Harris took the time to extend a personal peace offering to the overall bigots from Hazard County in order to save our democracy. You'll remember VP Harris compassionately offered to protect Bo and Luke Duke from the oppression of presenting personal identification prior to voting.
You're going to have to Xerox or photocopy your ID to send it in to prove you are who you are. Well, there are a whole lot of people, especially people who live in rural communities, who don't. There's no Kinko's, there's no Office Max near them. People have to understand that when we're talking about voter ID laws, be clear about who you have in mind and what would be required of them to prove who they are.
VP Harris realizes rural voters live in the 18th century, and the concept of a photocopier is as foreign to these raging ruralies as putting a man on that celestial body of green cheese 240,000 miles from the earth. But they're just so pleasing, some people. Alas, Trump is the GOP's presidential nominee again, and despite the Promethean efforts of America's cosmopolitan betters, the rural crackers have returned to the primordial soup. If we're to continue evolving as a species, it's time the urban and urbane leave the territories where the hills have eyes behind. It's the only way to send the proper message to other obstreperous, gauche, and pimply constituencies like Latinos who are presently supporting Trump by a 46-40 margin, according to the most recent New York Times Siena College poll. Or the 54% of suburban voters voting for Trump per the most recent CBS News poll. They also have to be told to get on the bus or be left under it, as do the 57% of independents, and 48% of women, and 49% of college-educated whites, and more than 1 in 5 black Americans all voting for Trump. There's another new book out about rural voters authored by 2 Colby College professors entitled The Rural Voter, for which they conducted more than 10,000 interviews of rural voters to understand the nuances of their political views rather than just smearing them with cheap caricatures. They argue shared values and community identity are the ties that bind rural voters, saying, one of the reasons it may be hard for Democrats to go into rural areas is that they've come to believe these are bastions of crazy Trumpers. But what we show in this book is that there are genuine concerns that predate Donald Trump by decades. Take the anxiety that all Americans feel about the future, double it, and extend it back extra decades. That's the story of rural America. But you see, the metropolitan clerics have no time nor interest for such subtleties. Fine. Their brutishness is going to mint a lot of rural voters who don't live out in the sticks. In the immortal words of Eddie Albert, keep Manhattan, just give me the countryside. I'm Dan Proft with a counterculture commentary. Please like this video and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And please leave a comment in the comment section. We'd love to hear your thoughts.